Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's the 17th of February, 2026, and we are here in Jacksonville, North Carolina, very close to Camp Lejeune, to interview Marine Corps Major Retired James Capers, Jr. And sir, it's an honor to be sitting with you in your home in Jacksonville to hear your story. I'm Scott Mythen with the Veterans Museum, and we are here to interview Major Capers for the Library of Congress Veterans History Project.
It's good to have you here in my home. And just so happens, 17th of February, I was in a place called Khe Sanh in Vietnam, the tip of the spear. The NVA was trying to come through Vietnam, and my job was to stop them. And we did for a few months. Then we left, and the Vietnamese never took the base, but they came through. And eventually, the Americans left Vietnam.
Well, it's amazing you still got that great memory for dates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't mind, sir, let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
I understand you were born in Bishopsville, South Carolina.
Right. Small town.
Back in the 30s?
Yep. I was born in 1937. The first James Capers Jr. passed away. And when I was born, they renamed me James Capers Jr. And survived and came through South Carolina into Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes, sir. So can you tell us about being a small child growing up in South Carolina?
Well, actually, I was a child. I have some memories, but it was mostly, we had a farm. And I remember the horses and the cows and the pigs, and the farming. It was cotton. We picked cotton, cropped tomatoes, or cropped tobacco. And we grew tomatoes. And that was my most, definite memory. There were things that have occurred, of course, that I remember some of those things, but it's hard to go back and grab that now in a small town like Bishopsville. Some were good memories. As a child, I became deathly sick, and it didn't look like I was going to make it. My family had already lost 3 children, and I was the last to be born, and it didn't look good. And my father gave me to a white family. There is an effort now to find out the names of, descendants of that family. They took me in, and I lived with them. I don't know how long, but obviously I was cured and given back to my family, and we left South Carolina. My father left first. Apparently he'd gotten some sort of problem, and the white family that I had been given to probably had something to do with getting him out of the trouble he was in. And he left South Carolina and left the family in South Carolina, and he went to Baltimore, Maryland. And he eventually ended up in Baltimore with my family. And we did get to Baltimore, and my father eventually joined us, and the family stayed together for all those years. And I'm the last survivor of that family now.
And again, just an honor to talk to you today. But
Well, thank you.
when you got to Baltimore, your father was already there, had been established, had a job.
Yeah.
What was he doing? Do you remember?
Well, the history is that my father was a gambler at first. He could play cards and shoot dice. Those are the things back in the communities where if you had a certain intellect, you'd be on the corners and you'd shoot dice and play cards. And that was a way to earn money, which is what we needed at that time. But he's basically a good man. Got in some trouble here and there, trying to find his way in Baltimore and trying to feed the family. Early on, I developed some things about my dad that was kind of scary. I might mention one morning, I came downstairs and saw this guy sitting in a chair by the door. So I called for my mom, and then my dad come down, and this was a white gentleman. He was sitting there. He was cold, and we hadn't started the fire in the home at that time. So my father asked him, "Why are you in my home?" And he said he was hungry. And I was watching this, and my father went and got him a sandwich and gave it to him. Said, "You eat this, but I want you to leave my home. If you ever come back here, so I'll cut your throat," something like that, which means that he was going to prefer, certain amount of damage to him. And this is what I heard. And up until that time, my father was lovable person, hugged me all the time. But now he's saying he's going to kill this person. As a child, I'm thinking, this isn't Dad. But he said, if you ever come to my home again, but he fed him first.
Mm-hmm.
The dichotomy of this thing. You feed him, and then you threaten death with him.
Well, your father showed compassion
Right.
and strength
Right.
to protect the family.
Right.
But also, love for his fellow human. Yeah. What other things did you learn from your parents growing up?
Well, there was, I guess, who I am today, I learned from my parents. My mom, when we got to Baltimore, she was the matriarch and taught us to right some wrongs, and we lived in a very small amount of money that she would take us to the store, and she knew the environment we lived in. And we had no car, so Mom and I and my sister used to walk to the store, and she was very good at those type of things. It was all for the family. But that was Mom, and she kept the house going, managed the children, and helped me through my education. She would come to the school and talk to my teachers. And the schools were in the neighborhood, so she would walk there and talk to my teachers and make sure that I was behaving properly. Wasn't so much concerned about the education. It was my behavior. I learned to read newspapers, listen to the radio, and those types of things. But Mom was always at the helm there. Kept us in line.
She sounds like a wonderful mother. And I'm glad you brought up that transition from, rural South Carolina to now you're living in the middle of Baltimore.
Right.
Walking everywhere, stores. You walk to school, right?
I did.
Yeah.
School was in my neighborhood, and we had taxi cabs, and which couldn't afford, so we walked. And we had some buses, but it took a while for us to know where to go and those types of things.
So were you in Baltimore during World War II?
Right. Yeah, we were there when World War II started. And in our neighborhood, we were told to turn out the lights. You couldn't have any lights in the neighborhood because we thought the Nazis was going to come and bomb us. That was how we lived through the war, and there was only a certain amount of things you could buy because most products were being sent overseas to the soldiers. We had very meager, things that we had left back in the States.
And how did you do in school during those years?
I did well because I didn't know anything. I didn't go to school in South Carolina. So I picked it up and I did relatively well. I could read relatively well, and that was a problem as we look back. How did I learn to read coming from a rural South and not having any education? But when I got to Baltimore, I saw the newspapers, and mostly about the war, what was happening in Japan and in Europe, and I picked it up relatively quick, and I enjoyed learning those things. They had a list of books that you could bring home from school, childhood books, and I loved it. And I used to bring them home, and I'd sit there and read them on my step, or they call them in Baltimore stoops. But I enjoyed the education. I couldn't get enough of it.
And I understand you went to vocational high school. Is that correct?
Right, Carver Vocational High School. And I went there, and I guess I became a man because I learned. I was accepted for the rifle, not for the wrestling team, and I was a champion wrestler. But my passion was, of course, history and arithmetic, mathematics. The numbers. I told you my father was a gambler. And he played the cards and shot the dice, and I heard the conversations, around him. And but he went out and gambled and came home with enough money to do this and do that. And there were so many things connected to that growing up there and learning to be a man, learning to be a teenager, and discovering girls. That was I was looking at the pretty young girl over here behind you. And so when I said girl, I looked at her, and it brought back memories. But as I grew, I met my wife, Dottie, and the first time I saw her, I fell in love.
Did you meet in high school?
In high school. I was walking down the hall one day, and she was walking down the hall, and I saw her. I was done. And I went home that day, and I told my mom, I said, "Ma, I saw this girl today." And she said, "That's okay, son. Sit down. We'll talk about it." And Mom was a patriot of the family. But I saw Dottie and fell in love, and every chance I got, I would want to see her. I found out what class she was in, and I'd go by her class and look in there, and I'd see her sitting there. She was the prettiest thing I ever seen.
What did you say to her the first time you talked?
I didn't say James, and I didn't say Jimmy. I don't remember how I introduced myself. It was probably, I said, "I'm James," and she said she was Dorothy Lee. And I walked with her down the hallway until we got to whatever class we went into. And then my buddies, they figured out very quickly that I was in love with Dorothy Lee. And my teacher, bless her heart, her name was Mrs. Roy. And Mrs. Roy figured it out, and she sometimes would send me to Dorothy's class and ask for this or that, and all of the guys would say, "Oh, he's going to see his girlfriend." I loved it the first time I saw it, and when she closed her eyes, I was holding her hand, and she said, "I'll see you again," and I'll see her again. She and my son in heaven waiting for me.
Yeah, I know it's been a few years since you lost both of them.
Yeah.
But it sounds like true love.
Yeah. I never remarried. I never found another Dottie Lee. After I buried her in Arlington National Cemetery, I came home to an empty house, and the demons come home, the memories, and of course the family that was here, not my biological family, but my friends, they stayed with me and helped me get through the difficult times. And eventually, I decided to go back to California. I was in another chapter of my life. I went to California.
Well, if you don't mind, before we get to that chapter,
Yeah,
can we go back to Baltimore for a minute?
sure.
Okay. What were your plans after high school?
To join the French Foreign Legion. I know that gets a laugh. That's what I had a friend of mine his name was Campbell. And he and I were close. We were on a wrestling team together, and we were buddies. And so we decided that let's go to France and join the French Foreign Legion.
How did you even hear about the French Foreign Legion as a young kid growing up in Baltimore?
Well, they lost in Dien Bien Phu. That was a big deal there. They had sent some soldiers into Dien Bien Phu, and they lost it. And there was a big news about France. And, of course, they didn't do too well during World War II. But I can remember the Dien Bien Phu thing. And the French Foreign Legion were there, and they lost the base. So we thought, well, that's adventurous, and we're tough guys. Let's go to France. But it was not as easy as we thought it was going to be. So we decided, well, we'll join the Marines, another tough group. And the Marines was all over the Pacific and captured all those islands and did the hard labor. And Korea was still going on. But they left Korea, I think, in 1955 or 56. So it was all in the newspapers, the toughest service in the world, the U.S. Marines. And so we joined, went down to the recruiter's office and we joined. Didn't join the Foreign Legion.
How old were you at
18.
this time?
Well, actually, it was 17, and then we turned 18.
Did you have to have your parents' permission to sign up at 17?
No.
Not back then?
No.
So what did your family say when you came home and said, I just joined the United States Marine Corps?
My mom cried because I was leaving the home. My dad said, all right, you'll do well. As a matter of fact, one thing I wrote about, my father told me that if 10 men go up a flight of steps and only one man makes it to the top, you believe that you will be that man, and it will be so. You'll always make it to the top if you believe that.
That's great advice. So those are the type of things your father taught you before you left?
Mm-hmm. He put me on a train and went to Parris Island, South Carolina, place where I was born, and went through some of the most difficult training for a young man. It turns you from a teenager to a man. It's brutal. And just before I got there, 6 Marines had been drowned in a place called Ribbons Creek. And it was, terrible Marine Corps. You're killing our children. But it didn't matter to me because I believe that I'll make it no matter how difficult it is. I'll find a way to survive. My father said I could make it to the top. And I got there and I did well. I was the top shooter in boot camp. The top shooter with the rifle and the pistol in my platoon.
Were you shooting the M1?
Yes, M1 rifle.
And what year was this?
1956.
Graduated high school?
Right.
Joined the Marine Corps.
I joined in June, and I graduated high school in June, and I joined the Marines in June. Had about 3 days from high school to Parris Island.
So you followed your dad's advice, and you did really well.
Yeah.
Top marksman.
Yeah. Top pistolman.
Had you ever shot a firearm before?
No.
But that's good training.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a natural aptitude, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So you make it through boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
Did any family members come to your graduation?
No. My father never went back to South Carolina. Apparently he'd got into some trouble and was wanted. Didn't take much back in South Carolina for a black man. So he never went back to South Carolina. I went to Baltimore and I got him and brought him to Camp Lejeune in my car. He lived with me in this house and he still loved to hunt. One day I had a .22 rifle, and one day he picked it up and went out in the backyard and shot a rabbit.
He was still a good shot.
Yeah, he was a good shot. He shot the rabbit. And then but before he shot the rabbit, I didn't give him my rifle. I went out with the .22 and I shot a rabbit out there. And he said, "Oh boy, you a good shot." I said, "Yeah, Dad, I can shoot." And he said, "Let me try that." So I gave him the rifle and he shot a rabbit. And it was a highlight of his time here at the house. And he would sit at the table there in the kitchen and tell me stories of what it was like to pick cotton and crop tobacco, and the hard life he had in the South. And if a white person comes down the street, you needed to move off to let that white person go. You had to say, "Yes, sir," and "No, sir," and learn your place where you were.
You never knew your grandparents?
No, never knew my grandparents.
Well, I'm glad you had those stories from your dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a good memory. He was funny. He'd tell you jokes and you'd be laughing. We'd be in the kitchen and I'd be washing dishes. And he would say, "Come here, boy." And I would sit down. He said, "Old man, somebody passed away and they had a funeral for him down the road a piece." I'm listening to this. And he said, "I went down to the funeral and they had the casket outside and the body was in the casket and everybody was there and they sang and prayed. But then when the funeral was over, everybody went home. And I lived up the road a piece, so I had to leave the funeral and go back home." I said, "Dad, how far was it?" He said, "Oh, it was quite a piece. But I was walking up there and I needed to get home because it was at night." He saw this white sheet, and I'm laughing because my father is going to tell me a whopper. He said, "I saw the white sheet, and all of a sudden the white sheet jumped up and a man come out of the white sheet and started running after him." He said he was running down the road. This man who was come out of this white sheet and was running after him. So he started running. The sheet was up in the air and he had his hands up in the air like that. I said, "Dan, what'd you do?" He said, "I outran him." It was funny the way he told the story. And he finally got to his house and he kicked the door in and fell on the floor. He told his father that something was chasing him. And my dad didn't, or he told his dad, Matter of fact, my grandfather was named Willie. But at any rate, the story of him coming from the funeral and enduring the chase by this white sheet, whatever thing was, the way he told it was hilarious. And I'd sit there in the kitchen and my wife would come out and say, "What are y'all laughing at?" And I'd be just laughing and he would tell these whoppers. And it was one of the highlights of my life, having my father sit there at the table and tell me such stories, real life stories.
His history, your history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I'm so glad you had that time.
Yeah, that was the time we had together. And sometimes he would leave the house and walk down the street and he met some of the neighbors. He'd come home and he said, hey, son, I was walking through the neighborhood and this white man spoke to me. I said, he spoke to you? Yeah, he was a white man. And he spoke to me. You know, you can take something out of that from his background, that's not normal in the South.
He didn't have to cross the street, and he's in a town next to a Marine Corps base,
Right.
and somebody spoke to him.
Spoke to him.
If we can get back to, you've just finished boot camp, but how many Black Marines were there in your company, in your division at that time?
In boot camp, I think there was four of us, four African Americans in that training cycle. Let's see, all but one died in the war, Vietnam. Yeah, from the boot camp in the 50s. We were friends for all those years, and specifically one named Oliver Campbell. And Oliver Campbell and I were brothers, basically. We'd gone to Carver High School together, and we were the ones who were going to join the Foreign Legion together. And we joined the Marines, went through boot camp, and lifelong friends. He come to this house, and we remembered all of the old days, and eventually he passed away. He had a family, had 11 children, and one of his kids contacted me some years ago. As a matter of fact, I went to his funeral up in Philadelphia, I think it was. He was living at the time. We went to Vietnam together and had some battles together. We were stationed together over there, and he was always my big brother. And he made sure that I had ammunition when I went out on the mission. He'd come to me and say, hey, I got some extra magazines. You might want to take these with you. Always looked after me. And I survived, and he didn't.
And that is tough, but it's great that you had a brother going through that initial training. Did you feel like you had joined a brotherhood joining the Marine Corps?
Before we graduated, he injured his foot, and he didn't graduate with me. He stayed at Parris Island for another cycle before he graduated. And when I got on the train and left Parris Island, it was sad because my lifelong buddy stayed behind. Matter of fact, I told him that, well, I'm not going to leave you behind. I'll find some way to stay behind with you, and I'll help you out. He said, no, you won't. You go home. You go home. And I did, got on the train, went home. And we, of course, reunited through the years and stationed at Camp Lejeune. And we went to Vietnam. We went to Lebanon together. And we both married. I went to, I think he came to my funeral, and I went to his funeral.
You mean wedding?
Yeah, I'm sorry, weddings, yeah. You're doing good. You're listening to me.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah.
What followed on after boot camp? Was that when you went to the 2nd Marines, or did you have any more training?
I went to a place called IR, Infantry Training Resident. Was supposed to spend a month there for combat training. And then the Egyptians went to Suez Canal, and one day our sergeant came. This is an infantry training, supposed to be a month. We'd been there for about a week, and they came in and said, okay, it's over. So they put us on trucks and sent us to the big base, and they took us to Morehead City and put us on ships, and we left North Carolina and went to the Suez Canal.
So you were on a Navy ship,
Yeah.
across the Atlantic, through the Mediterranean.
Right,
And you were still a student.
right.
What did you think of that experience?
It was scary, but I'm Jim Capers. My father filled my head with all of that stuff. So I had my rifle, and they gave us plenty of ammunition. And we went to the Suez Canal, and the British come in. Of course, they had been in the Middle East since years, the British Empire. So they sent the Brits in. They made a parachute jump. Not so sure why, because they weren't going to sustain that group they had there if the Egyptians at that time and some of the other Mediterranean countries had said no, it would have been a massacre. But Americans came in, American Marines came in, and we floated around in ships, and they fired some rounds and show of force. Yeah, and then we stayed there in November of '56. We turned around and come home. Said Eisenhower was president, I believe, because Kennedy took over after him. And it started over again when Kennedy was there. We took off again.
When you got back from that Suez mission, did you resume your infantry training?
No, we went to a regular unit. And in fact, when I came back, we went to the Grunts infantry. And then I fell in love again. I went on leave and I saw Dottie.
It had been, what, 9 months, a year?
Yeah, something like that. And then I called her, and I took a taxi cab to where she lived. And I figured this isn't bad. Maybe I could get married and have a family, but I loved the Marine Corps at that time. My enlistment was 3 years, and I hadn't been in 3 years yet. So I want to experience some more of the Marine Corps. And but I was in love with Dottie, and whenever I come home on leave, I'd go to her and her house, and we sit in the living room, and every once in a while, I'd sneak a kiss.
What did your Dottie's parents think of you?
Well, Dottie's father didn't live in the house, but her mother loved me. She loved me. Thought that Dottie would do well by marrying me. And she knew that I was there in the living room, and I would try to get a kiss or two. And I'm still a kid, really. I don't know much about the world. Wasn't until later on, when I went to the Middle East, that I met a lady in Greece. And we'll leave that part out.
So did you do any more deployments when you were infantry?
Yeah. I went back to the Med in 1957. It was 56 I went to Suez Canal. Now, in 57, I went for a 6-month tour in Europe. And that's when I went to Spain and Turkey and Greece and those places. I spent 6 months over there. Now, what we were supposed to do was keep the peace, because a lot of the countries were fighting each other. And
was that when there was a civil war in Lebanon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, that was 58.
Oh, that was 58.
I went back in 57, went over 56, 57, and 58.
So you had another med cruise in there. That's great. What did you think of, growing up South Carolina, Baltimore, visiting all these European Mediterranean ports?
It was amazing. I enjoyed it. I brought back a lot of gifts for Dottie, and unfortunately, I brought the gifts back to my home, and my sister took them. So I never got the chance to give them to Dottie. I had Chanel perfume and all these things, but my sister said, "Oh, this smells good. I think I'll." So Dottie never got it.
The thought was there, though.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
The thought was there.
So 58 was when you went to Lebanon.
Yeah. I made
Yeah.
sergeant.
Okay. So I guess you're an E5 now. You're going to stick around in the Marine Corps?
No, I was E4.
You're E4?
And in January 58, they changed the rank structure from 3 stripes, and they gave you cross rifles, and that meant you were sergeant. It was kind of, odd back in those days, but I made sergeant. It was on a meritorious board. When we got home, the battalion commander wanted to promote some of the guys in the battalion that did things in Lebanon. I killed my first human being in Lebanon. And it wasn't pleasant, but they would have killed us. And so I made E4, then I made E5, somewhere in there.
But you had said during that initial 3 years, you wanted to see more, do more in the Marine Corps. Now you're past that point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I went home, and I saw Dottie, and I told her that my 3 years was up. And I said I could come home, or I could continue being a Marine. And she said, "What will you do? Where would you go?" And I said, "Well, I've been all over the world now. Maybe we could get married." I said, "Would you marry me?" She said, "Yeah." No discussion, yeah. So I had already had orders for Pendleton. And I said, "Well, why don't we become a family?" But I said, "I've got to go in 10 days. And then I'll send for you." And I did. I went to California and then to get a house, that's what it was, housing. And I finally got the housing, and she flew to California.
Before you went to Pendleton and got on the housing list, did you get married in Baltimore?
Yeah.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah, I got married, and the odd thing about it is that the night we were going to get married, everybody's there. My mom, my dad, and her mother was there, and I lost my marriage license. You had to have a marriage license back in those days. I had it in my pocket. Somewhere along the line, I dropped it in the street. So we're there, everybody's there, and the pastor said, "Well, it's good to see you young people here, ready to, holy matrimony and whatever." And he said, "Before we get started, though, let me see your marriage license." No problem. I reach in my pocket. It's not there. But Jim Capers, don't panic. He looked in his other pocket. It wasn't there. So now Jim Capers began to think. And the pastor said, "Do you have your license?" I said, "Yeah, wherever I have the license, but I don't know what happened to it." He said, "I'm sorry, son, but Dottie's standing there, beautiful. She's looking at me. And I'm not worried. Not Jim Capers." The pastor said, "I'm sorry, son, but if you don't have a marriage license, I can't marry you." So Dottie is looking at me, those daggers are staring at me. And I said, "Sweetheart, I got a license." She said, "Where is it?" I said, "I don't know." So the pastor canceled the wedding, and everybody went home. Ma and Pa went home. My friends and I tried to explain, because I'd gone down to City Hall and got the marriage license and all of that. So I'm sorry, but I do have a license. So I'm at my house, I believe it was, but Dottie was there. And this kid knocked on the door at about 12 o'clock at night. And he said, "Mr. Capers." Of course, I was Mr. Capers and my dad was Mr. Capers. I said, "Yeah." He said, "I found this piece of paper in the street and it had your name on it. It's my marriage license. I dropped it in the street. The kid found it and brought it to the house. We called a reverend."
That night?
Yeah, that night. Called a reverend and say, "Rev, we got the marriage license." So we rushed down to his house. We got married late at night. And the Rev said, "A bad beginning makes a good ending." And we stayed married 50 years.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, in those days, I lived through. And Dottie had some words. Bless her heart. She had some words. Oh, I want to go out and get drunk. But no, we were together. And we survived the war together and all those other things.
It's great to hear that your marriage license made its way back to you.
Yeah, made it back then.
So you head out to California.
Yeah.
Which unit are you attached to out there?
I went to a brig company where they kept the guys that got in trouble. And while I was there, I met a young man there was sitting in, we had tents there where we had the prisoners, and this trooper was there, and he always had some Life magazines. They used to give the prisoners magazines and Look magazines. Years later, they told me he was Lee Harvey Oswald.
He was in the brig.
Mm-hmm. He had done some time in the Marine Corps. And, he was a little guy that didn't say much. And I don't know much about it because I didn't know that he would be killing Kennedy. I remember when the Kennedy was shot and the whole bit. But a lot of history at that time, we were just coming out of blowing up Japan. We had a lot of that still going on, the digging out of the islands, and Europe was a mess. I went to France when I was over there, and it was a mess. And we used to wear boots because the streets were, blown up. It was a mess. World War II was just, and the American dollar was worth a lot of money in France, a lot of money, and their franc was worth nothing. We learned a lot about the intricacies of those countries that went to war so close after the World War II. They never got a chance to rebuild, and we got there rebuilding again. So we felt a sense of patriotism. We helped them. We bought things. We gave them our dollars. When we bought their things that they had to sell. We heard their stories about the Nazis. We saw what the Nazis had done to Europe. And they hadn't really rebuilt it back in the 50s and 60s yet. This is 1956, 57. And World War ended in, 45? So we were learning, and I was learning. I took it to heart. And eventually, after that, of course, I got myself married and went back to Europe. Certain times that it had rebuilt. When I went back I was married and I was a captain. And these are stories that I don't usually tell, but my wife and I had decided to divorce. Of course, there's other things in between that, And I suffered from serious PTSD
This is after Vietnam.
after Vietnam.
You're a captain. Yeah. Well, we do not have to talk about that if you don't want to.
Well, I was declared insane. It's what happened to not just me, but a lot of American soldiers and Marines. And the country didn't give a damn. They never said welcome home. When World War II was over, they had great parades in the streets and planes flew over, American planes. We come home, shot up, and nobody said welcome home. You know, when I got home, I was lying on the tarmac. It was at night, and I was shot all up, still bleeding. And this individual walked out of the darkness, stood over me and pissed in my face. That was my welcome home. Nobody shook my hand or said, you did a good job. And now they tell me I'm going to get the Medal of Honor. Now. And this is 2000, what?
26.
26. And that was
67.
1967. And he pissed in my face. I couldn't move. And they finally picked me up, put me in an ambulance, and they took me to Bethesda Hospital.
So you must have landed on the East Coast.
Right.
Yeah.
And I stayed there a year.
Well, I'm so sorry that was your welcome back to America. Sir, if we can talk about those days in California, Dottie, you brought Dottie out?
Yeah.
Okay. And what did she think about being a Marine Corps wife?
She loved it. She was a great Marine wife. I had made sergeant, but now her sergeant is corporal. And I joined First Force Recon Company, and they paid us $55 extra a month for jumping out of airplanes.
So how did you get from the brig to Force Recon?
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen?
Well, they were looking for volunteers, and I figured, well, I can do this. I'd been in 3 years now. I'd been in combat. And so I went over to the company, the Recon Company, which is, I don't know the base name, but I went there and I went in to see the first sergeant. And I told him that I was here to volunteer for the Recon Company. And he said, who are you, boy? And I said, I'm Corporal J. Capers, 1605728, which is my serious number. He said, what make you think you good enough to be a Recon Marine? I said, First Sergeant, I'm good enough to do anything. Just give me an opportunity. He said, you have to earn the opportunity to be here. This is the best damn fighting men in the world. And he was kind of a scary guy, been around a long time. He was trying to scare me to see if I was going to blink. And he said, well, I'll give you a chance. And they called in one of the sergeants, good man, tough guy, got killed in Vietnam. Yeah. He gave me the PT test. You had to take the PT test, which is cruelty. They run you forever. You got to do all these different things, to earn the right to start the training process. I had to pass that first. Then you start the training program. And then you go off to jump school. Then you do the scuba stuff. It's a whole commando thing and learn to blow things up.
How did you do on that initial PT test?
I killed it. You weren't going to kill Jim Capers. No. And the sergeant was one of the better sergeants, and that's why they had so few men, because most of them dropped out. I didn't drop out. No, he ran me for miles and miles and miles. Then we came back. There was some sort of speed thing. He'd run me till I was tired, and And now we're going to do the speed thing to close it out. I couldn't match him. So he told me, well, you need to come back again when you get good enough. I said, yes, sir. I went home, tired as all hell. Dottie was there. And I went back, I believe it was Monday. And I told the first sergeant, I'm here to finish the indoctrination. He said, but I understand you quit. I said, no, sir, I don't quit anything. You know, I'm here to do the indoctrination. And the sergeant came out and looked at me. He said, didn't I tell you not to come back again? I said, no, you didn't. You said at that time, I'm here to start again. He said, oh, hell. I'm not going to run you again. You did all right. And so they let me in. I was the only African American in that group. Yeah, and I was proud of that.
You were the first to join Force Recon.
Pathfinders. I was in a Pathfinder group. Those are the guys you jump in ahead of the battles, and like they did in World War II. But yeah, they let me join.
Was Dottie was supportive of this decision to join Force Recon?
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I had a baby.
Born in California.
Yeah. Wonderful child. He was born blind, special needs. And he died here at the Naval Hospital. He died of appendicitis. And I sued the federal government for wrongful death.
Did they miss the diagnosis?
Yeah. And I won the case. And they paid me a lot of money because I proved my case that they should not have let my son die.
I'm so sorry that you lost him.
Yeah, he was wonderful. He played the piano, the flute, the melodic, the organ. His memory's still in his house. He used to come in the bedroom and pinch my toes. Wake up, Dad.
His name was Gary?
Gary.
Yeah.
What can I say? There were wonderful years with him and Mom. And
let's jump back to California.
Mm-hmm.
You made it into Force Recon.
Yeah.
You had been infantry, now you're working at a brig. What was your introduction into the Force Recon world like?
Very difficult. I had to go through indoctrination again, which was 2 weeks. And they had the toughest sergeants. I think there was 2 of us that went through the indoctrination. And they take you, and for 2 weeks, they get you ready to go to paratrooper school, which was in Georgia. And they ran you and did all those things. So you had to be in good shape to pass that. Of course, I passed it because I want to do that, and I felt that I could. So when I got there, I did that, and then they sent me off to paratrooper school in Fort Benning, Georgia. So I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. It was for a month. I was an honor graduate.
What were your experiences like jumping out of an airplane and preparing for that?
Yeah. Well, it was 4 weeks, and you learned the physical part of it, you know. And they pretty much like the Marines. They had, you know, push-ups and the sit-ups and the running, and then you do the preliminary, you know, jumping, and they give you a parachute, and they take this fan, this huge fan, and they blow you along to see if you could recover. And then they put high blocks up, and then you have to jump off of that and do what we call a parachute roll, and learn how to, pack a parachute. You know, you had to learn to be a rigger. And so all that for a month, and plus the physical stuff, because I was the only black guy there. And so they got a chance to see me in action. and I did well.
You recall that first time, your first jump?
Yeah, not a problem, because I'd been through the training. You know, they take you up about 1,200 feet, and the jump master put you in the door. I'd never done that before. I jumped out of helicopters, but on the ground based. But now you up, you look and you see the ground go by, and he stacks your doors. Okay, go, bam! They kick you out the door, and you're out, and you're spinning around, and but you learn to pull the parachute shroud lines, and then they'll give you a direction, and they've got a place on the ground where you're supposed to hit the drop zone. Well, I made all 5 jumps and all of the training, and graduated on a man. We went to Hawaii, and we stayed over there. Went to Okinawa, and we spent a year in Okinawa.
And this is with the first Force Recon?
Force, yeah, the Marine Pathfinders. So we actually jumped in with other ground units to clear their drop zones for them so they could come in and fight. It was exciting. Spent a year there.
And Dottie and Gary were back in San Diego?
So Gary went back home to Baltimore. Yeah, they went back to Baltimore, and so I was gone all that time. The Russians were putting nukes into Cuba. And that's when Kennedy told President of Russia, Khrushchev, and that got to be a big problem. When Khrushchev sent his ships over with nukes on them, Kennedy told them, turn them around. You're not going to put them in Cuba because they're 90 miles from our country. And ships was coming, and everybody waited. The whole world waited. And I was on my way back from Europe, from Okinawa. And we were on the way back, and we were thinking that, damn, if the Russians hit us, there won't be a country for us to land in. And Castro was the president then, and he was going to accept those nukes, but they turned around, and we flew home, and Dottie met me at the airport in Fort Meade, Maryland. They gave me 30 days leave. I had to report to Camp Lejeune. So I left her and the baby in Baltimore, and I came down here and started training other Marines.
Which unit was that here at Lejeune?
It was a training unit, and I spent, I think, 9 months here.
How were you as an instructor?
It was good. At the same time, though, my son was born blind, special needs, and so my first sergeant, I'd been selected to be a drill instructor at Parris Island.
That's an honor.
Yeah. But my first sergeant said that, maybe we could give you a humanitarian transfer to Fort Meade, Maryland, and you could put your son in the Maryland School for the Blind. So my problem is, well, I go to Parris Island and be a DI, or I go on humanitarian transfer to look after my wife and my son. I had to make a decision then. And I made a decision to go to Maryland.
And was your son Gary able to get into the Maryland School for the Blind?
Yeah, he learned to read Braille. He learned to read music. He could play the piano, the flute, the melodica, the organ.
That's a whole new world opened up for him.
Yeah.
Once he can read.
Yeah.
And play.
Yeah.
And, so it sounds like that was a good move for the Capers family.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And
which unit were you attached to at Fort Meade?
The Marine Barracks, Fort Meade. And they protected the National Security Agency. So I went into the National Security Agency as a sergeant. but I didn't have a clearance, so they made me the supply officer.
At the barracks?
Yeah. And then while I was there as supply officer, and I'm a 3rd degree black belt in karate, savate, aikido, judo, I started teaching karate to the Marines up there.
Where had you trained in martial arts?
When I was in Okinawa. Yeah. And got me pretty good at it, I guess, and saved my ass in some situations. But I'm there now, and I'm teaching the other Marines. And we also started a band there, and they called Fort McHenry Band. We'll go out to Fort McHenry, the place where we had a little thing with the British. The Star Spangled Banner was written. So we had young Marines, and like yourself, that we marched out there every Thursday at 7 o'clock. We went out there and we marched and we played. And
like an evening colors ceremony?
Right.
Just like at 8th and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were our big brothers because they could do it all. They could, we were good, won some awards, and Dottie was happy. The baby was happy. Made a lot of good friends, but I still wasn't able to guard inside because I didn't have the clearance. Eventually, my clearance came through, and I had the top secret clearance. And while I was in the building, one day, one of my guards called me from one of the posts, and he said he had a problem. So I went down there, and there was a Marine who said he was there to kill the president. So I arrested him and took his weapon. He said that he'd been having these dreams that he was told to go to the barracks, and they said the president was coming in, and he was told to be there when the president, and he's going to shoot him. I think who the president was. At that time, I can't remember who the president was.
Probably Johnson? Kennedy or Johnson?
Yeah, it was Johnson, yeah.
Yeah.
It was Johnson, yeah. I got a letter of commendation for that. I arrested the Marine who said he was going to kill the president, and I took him down to Quantico, turned him over to the Marines down in Quantico. And we got there, and I took him into a wall locker where we kept our clothes, and he was telling me things that in his mind, they were telling him to put things in this wall locker, and he'd look in the wall locker and there was nothing there. And he was telling me how this voice told him to kill the president. And I'm thinking, I'm in over my head, and I turned him over to the folks there.
Was the country at that time sending service members to Vietnam?
Mm-hmm. Early on.
Mm-hmm. Advisors?
Right.
Right.
You know your history. Very good. We sent some Marines over. Then the Army came in with the big groups, regiments, and they fought for years. And I went over, I watched TV at night, and Walter Cronkite was a TV anchor, and he talked about what was going on in the jungles of South Vietnam, and we lost so many young Americans. And
this is one of the first times as a country that the nation could watch what was happening in Vietnam in almost real time, get nightly updates.
Right. You could see the battles.
Yeah. How did you feel I know Fort Meade was good for the family, but how did you feel being stationed there watching your brothers?
Well, that was my problem. I was on a humanitarian transfer. I couldn't be deployed. The Commandant of the Marine Corps says, we're going to keep him here.
He signed your orders.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was there, and I watched every night when you see those bloody battles and places that we all know now lost a lot of thousands of young Americans. And the flag was playing and the music was, I was with a little guard, Fort Meade guard. We'd be out there on Thursday and we'd twirl our rifles and we'd march and drill and, and a Star Spangled Banner. Hear the trumpets playing. And I went home at night and I watched that. And I'm saying that, I should be there. And Daddy would bring the baby in. I had to hold the baby, and of course, him being blind, he was used to holding on to my face. He would rub my face. And I'm holding my child, and Daddy's looking at me, and I'm watching the TV. And she'd come in and say, I'll take the baby now. And then the Marine Corps was looking for volunteers. The casualty list was high. And Dottie knew that I was watching and she was watching. And one day, one of the warrant officers from the barracks come to my quarters. I lived on the base there, along with the Army guys. And I knew that some of the Army guys were leaving. I saw the wives crying. I watched the funerals. And those guys who were left didn't come home. Now I'm faced with the same situation. And Gunner, don't remember his name now, but he come to the house and told me that the Marine Corps was looking for special operators. And he said, in your record, you've been to all of the training, and would you like to apply? He said, we'll send you to 3rd Force Recon Command, and you'll train and you go to Vietnam. Then Dottie came in and asked the warrant officer, or said to the warrant officer, if you don't want something to drink or eat, he said, your night's over. Said, my husband will do his duty. He'll do his duty. You don't need to come here to our home and ask him. And they left. And I talked to Dottie about it. I said, sweetheart, time has come now. She said, I know. It's time for you to go, and I'll be here when you come back. I'll take care of the baby. You go and do your duty and take care of your man. And I had another young man that was one of my karate students. He used to come to the house, and I'd teach. They had a big gym there, and I'd teach martial arts a couple times a week to all of the guys in the barracks who want to, be a black belt or something. And I went to Vietnam. He got orders and got shot and killed. I was in Vietnam when he got shot and killed, because I saw him in Da Nang. Good young man. And he believed in Sergeant Capers, one of my best students. He didn't make it in Force Recon. Not everybody gets to do that.
Did you have to do any training prior to your deployment to Vietnam?
Well, they sent me to the Navy scuba school. down in Key West, Florida. Yeah, I went there. I took 19 divers down there. I took them with me, and I'd go to the scuba program with them. And one Marine was still alive. I talked to him last week. His name was Nicholson. And he failed the distance swim. He failed the speed swim. Mm-hmm. And it's a month course, hard course. And we're all going to Vietnam. So Tommy and Nick didn't make the speed course. So the instructor said he was going to drop him.
Is this at the end of training?
Right.
The final test?
Final test. Speed test.
How did you do on the test?
I went through everything. Honor graduate. And I told the chief, I said, Chief, you know we're going to Vietnam. He said, yeah, goddammit, everybody goes to Vietnam. I said, I can't afford to drop this man. He's a good man. He said, everybody here's a good man. I said, Sarge, I was the staff sergeant then. I said, Sarge, you know the program. He said, I can't let him do this again. I said, what if I swam with him? I'll do it with him. He said, but you already made your swim. You can't do that twice. Nobody does that twice. I said, yes, I can.
Had you just finished your test?
I had finished mine. I'm tired.
You just gotten out of the water?
Out of the water.
And you volunteered to go back?
I'm pleading with the chief there to let me try it again. And Tommy and Nick is looking at me. I'm saying, let's get in the water. Let's get in the water. And we did. We got in the water. And then my body was saying, I don't know about this. Which is a hard program. The Navy SEALs don't play with it in those courses. They do not play with it. But I gutted out. I think we got about 100 meters from the finish line. And he was doing okay. He was matching me, stroke by stroke. And we got about maybe 100, 150 meters from the finish line. I said, Tommy, we're going to war now. Let's kick it out. And we both kicked it out. Barely made it. And the chief said, get out of the water. Get out of the water. You pass.
Unbelievable, though, that, you were able to give him someone to follow.
Right.
And guide him in.
Right, guide him. But we were about 150 away from the finish line, though. He looked at me. I said, kept going. We're going to Vietnam. And I talked to him last week. He's not doing well. And I was going to ask him to go to Washington with me when the president gives me the Medal of Honor.
Yeah, I understand that is in the works for you, and that's amazing.
Yeah, well, Frank, my chief of staff, can probably brief you on that. But they tell me now that the House has approved it and sent it on to the Senate. And hopefully if the Senate approves it, when they approve it, it'll go to the president. And then he's a busy man, and hopefully he'll approve it sometime pretty soon.
I certainly hope so, and I can't wait to get to that part of the story.
Yeah.
So you passed swim qualifications. Mm-hmm. Any jungle training before you went to Vietnam?
Yeah, we went down to Panama. We took the whole company down to Panama and the Virgin Isles. We did some sub-training. These were not nuclear boats. They were diesel boats. And we trained on the diesel boats and did all the long-distance swims. It took us 2 months to get our guys ready for combat. The ones who hadn't been to jump school, we sent them in different programs, putting mines in, taking mines out, and fighting in the jungles. Panama was interesting.
How so?
I'd been in the jungles before in Okinawa. And a lot of our guys had never been in the jungles. And we ended up bringing home a 18-foot snake. We called him Goma, which was a popular TV program there.
Oh, the Gomer Pyle show.
Yeah, we captured Goma and brought him home.
18 feet. What type of snake we talking about?
Python.
How did you get the snake
Good question.
back home?
We captured him and put him on an airplane. And
Was that on the cargo manifest?
no, we sneaked him on the aircraft. Recon guys will do anything. These guys were unique now. We're talking about a Third Force Recon Company. And we brought him back to the barracks. And of course, the officers didn't know anything about this. They wouldn't have put up with that. But they let him loose in the barracks. And one night I got up to go to the head, and I tripped over him. I felt this, and his body jerked, I tripped over, and I fell, and I saw the snake, and I figured, oh, man, here we go. But I scrambled away, and he didn't move. But they took him up to the zoo in Washington. Unfortunately, he died on the way up there. He never got there alive. But that was Gomer Pyle number 1. In Vietnam, there was another Gomer Pyle python or boa constrictor we had there. We didn't call him Gomer Pyle.
Wow. So lots of fun, lots of good training though in Panama.
Yeah.
And then Dottie and Gary, were they able to stay with family in Baltimore?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get a chance to come home?
Yeah, I came home and I had a weekend. And then I was coming back and they put us on a bus and took us to Norfolk. And from Norfolk, we got on a ship that took us to the Suez Canal and into Vietnam.
That's the long way.
Yeah. Let's see, we made 4 dives, combat dives in Vietnam.
Since I'm Navy, I have to ask, you've done numerous deployments on Navy ships. What were y'all doing? Were you writing letters back home? How did you pass the time of day?
We marched. We had combat training. The crew was very good to us. Over the years, the Navy was always very good to the Marines. We loved the chow there because in the field we eating sea rations. Aboard the ship, they have all this good food.
3 hot meals.
Yeah. And at night, the chiefs, the cooks, if you went on mess duty with the cooks, they'd give you all this extra food. So I had guys volunteer to go on mess duty or go on night duty. But I enjoyed the tours. A lot of the young guys did too. We wrote letters home, and we'd exercise, and some of the guys tried to fish. Had some lines, they'd fish over there.
Now, when you're out at sea for an extended period of time, you sometimes get to do a swim call.
Yeah, swim call.
Did you do any of that?
No, we didn't do any swim call. We'd done a lot back in the States. Okay. We had lost a ship called the USS Card. The Vietnamese had blown it up. And so we came in, and the admiral wanted us to do a ship bottom search.
And your ship had a complement of Force Recon Marines.
Yeah.
Who were dive qualified.
Yeah. So we went down and checked the ship out. Of course you got scuba gear on, and you're swimming under the ship with your hands, and the ship metal is rough, and you had the gloves on, of course.
You were looking for what, like a limpet mine or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is in the harbor in Vietnam?
In the harbor, right. Now, the problem we run into was that the Navy had been dumping their garbage in the harbor. And the sharks show up, and they were feeding the sharks.
Sharks were eating the garbage.
Right. So we're in the water, and something went wrong. The Navy put the garbage in the harbor while we were in the water. So we got a problem. So I'm under the ship with the tiger sharks, at the forefront of it. And I'm thinking, I got a problem here. But if they had an explosive aboard the ship, then we're going to lose a lot of people. And so we kept swimming. We went by the exhaust, at an exhaust under the ship, and it was pouring out different things, and I didn't want my guys to get sucked up in there, so I had to go around it. And we all had tanks on. It was a tough swim. The boat was moving a little bit, and we swam and we swam.
You didn't find any mines?
No mines. And we got to the end of it, and one of my men, he's gone now, he was out too close to where I saw the sharks were. I had enough room. I could see the sharks out there, the tiger sharks. They were feeding, frenzied. And his buddy line, we all had buddy lines, and his buddy line come loose, and he was swimming, drifting out where the sharks were. Wasn't going to make it. There's no way. I'm dive master. I'm thinking, I can get him. I can make this. I unhooked my buddy line and swam out there, and I got him. And I held on to him. And I put my buddy line on him, and we swam back to under the ship.
Against the current?
Against the current. That was a young Jim Capers. Wasn't going to let that man die. It was frightening in a way. Have you ever seen a school of sharks eating? Probably one of the more frightening things that I'd seen at that time. But he lived. He brought his wife and his 4 children here and brought them to this home. And she thanked me. And the children hugged me. Yeah, he made it. And then, of course, he eventually passed away. Now when I tell Frank, sometime the demons come home.
Like the memories.
Yeah, the memories.
Yeah.
Keeps me awake at night. And they give me sleeping pills, pain pills, and pills for PTSD. And I'm better. But I think in the mix there, I'm holding my son in my arms when he takes his last breath. And the next day, the doctor tells me my wife has got terminal cancer.
Very soon after you lost Gary.
Yeah. Then I go to Arlington, where they're both buried. And, I come home, and the house is empty. And I turn off all the lights, and I get in the bed, and Dottie is here. I tell her, sweetheart, I love you, and I'll see you soon. That's what I say to her. It's going to be okay. But Dottie is buried now, and she's in Arlington National Cemetery. And I live by myself. I never remarried. If she'd asked me, I'd marry her. Wow. How old are you anyway?
56.
You're a baby.
Yeah.
In a year and a half, I'll be 90.
I love that. And I hope to be in as good a shape as you when I get there.
Yeah, you'll be all right, son. You'll be right. You're a good man. These are the medal from the Vietnam era.
Mm-hmm.
And this one here is the Commando Hall of Honor, Marine Commandos. And this is a Raider medal. All were given to me. I'm proud of these. This is for combat, of course. So, and you have to forgive the chubbiness of my stomach.
Oh, that's just the way you're sitting in the chair.
Yeah, thank you. like this guy.
But you've got your full dress ribbons over here.
Yeah, well, they put them on for me.
Yeah, looking sharp.
Yeah, thank you. And now you're going to go back and give me a moment to decompress. Frank, you want to help me think?
Well, so far you've been doing a great job.
He's my
Wonderful
mystic.
job.
He's been with me for a long time. Okay.
Scott's a great interviewer as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, he is. I've been listening to him and stuff. Out of a lot of the folks who've interviewed you, he does a fantastic job.
Well, thank you, sir.
Brings you back on track too when he needs to. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I get carried away to talk about sharks and all this stuff there.
Well, I just love you still have a great memory.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. It's wonderful to talk to you.
I had a high IQ. I took the IQ test here at Camp Lejeune. They wanted to send me to OCS, the Officers Training Course. And I took the test, and the instructor said that he asked me, "Where'd you go to school? Did you go to college?" I had a couple of courses I took up in Fort Meade, Maryland. He said, "You got the highest score of a Negro." We were called Negroes back in them days, you know. And I said, "Well, I studied as hard as I could, and I passed the test, but I didn't get selected."
For OCS.
Yeah, I didn't get selected. But I got it years later in Vietnam when the colonel called me in. It was raining outside, and he took off my staff sergeant Chevins, and he reached in his desk, put on lieutenant bars. So I'd gone from staff sergeant to lieutenant in 2 or 3 minutes.
Field commission.
Yeah.
Second lieutenant.
I walked out in the rain, and my guys were out there congratulating me, and I'm an officer now.
Did you get your first salute?
Yeah. But one day, I was walking down the area, and this young Marine walked past me and didn't salute me. So I didn't really care much about that stuff anyway, but it was regulation. And I said, "Hey, partner, don't you salute an officer?" He said, "You an officer?" So I thought you were just another black guy. I said, "That's all right, son, it's okay." He walked away, and I walked away. He saluted me, then he walked away. It was funny. But it took a while for the guys to get used to seeing an officer, because I was the only black guy around that had the bars on at that time. Now we got generals, colonels and generals. Huh? Go ahead, son.
Well, we were talking about the combat dive.
Yeah.
As soon as you got to Vietnam, rescuing your Marine who broke away in the current and pulling him back from the sharks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing y'all have a lot of equipment that you had on the ship.
Yeah.
Right? Not just your scuba gear, you had everything else for force recon deployments. You got that off the ship, and where were you going?
He went to a place called Phu Bai at first, and there was another recon battalion there. So we went on some missions with the recon battalion. First combat, bloody type stuff, that tough introduction. And we went on a lot of patrols with them. This is First Force.
That other recon group, had they been in country before you?
Right. Mm-hmm. The First Force was part of First Recon Battalion. So we joined up with those guys, had our first casualties. And we found out some things about us as a group. Our leadership wasn't as good as it should have been, and we had a young captain who was in charge of us, in charge of the 2 platoons. So we had 2 platoons, and the captain was in charge of both of us and the supply group that came with us. They brought over the scuba stuff and stuff that we needed to go in the jungles and fight for a year.
I'm sorry, I don't think I asked which unit you deployed with. Was it 3rd Force Recon?
3rd Force, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 3rd Force. Did I say 1st Force?
Well, you said you met with the 1st Force guys that were there.
Right, 1st Force guys at the battalion there.
Yeah.
And we worked with 1st Force and ran our first missions and tough missions. Learned a lot. We had some casualties, and we had to ship out a couple of guys. First battle casualties there with those guys. We did well, but there were some learning experiences that we had to deal with. We didn't get it all right the first time.
And you were operating out of Fubai for the
Right.
first few days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'd been through Da Nang, Fubai, and then we end up in Quezon, which was, I mentioned the word bloodbath, but yeah, out of all those guys we took over, there's one from Broadmine that's still left alive. His name is Henry Stanton, and Henry lives in Louisiana, and he's going to go with us on the Medal of Honor trip.
That's fantastic.
He lost a kidney there. And that's a great story. Let me tell you this story about Henry. He was my M79 man. And
Grenade launcher.
yeah, right. And we had a hard battle in a place called Fulop. And we all were wounded. And I got hit with a claymore and some other rounds. And we were all down. And I'd already been hit, and I was up against a tree. And Stanton was hit, and he fell back on me. And I thought he was dead. So I reached around him to pull off his dog tags. And he looked up at me, and blood was coming out of his nose, a lot of blood, and from his mouth. And I said, hang in there, son, we're going to make it. And probably one of the bravest things I ever heard, Stanton looked at me and he said, I'm out of ammunition with my M79. He said, Lieutenant, yeah, Henry. He said, give me a rifle. I can still fight. I thought the boy was dying. Or said, just hand me a rifle. I can still fight. And I'm thinking, damn. So everybody was wounded and down. The war dog, I looked over here and the war dog was dead. King, giant German Shepherd, and his tongue was hanging out. And I'm holding on to Stanton. And I was able to, it was Sergeant Yerman. Sergeant Yerman was hit, but he come crawling over, and he said, we're all down, Lieutenant, we're all down.
Was it a claymore blast that took out the group?
No, he was hit with probably AK-47. Yeah, the claymores went off, and that had a spread there, and all of us got hit with small pieces of metal. But Yerman was down. He come crawling over, and he said, we're all down, sir. He looked at me, and he said, we can still fight. We can fight. And he had the radio, and he called in artillery. And he gave us 100 meters grace. He didn't drop it on us. 100 meters grace.
Still close.
Yeah, it's close. He was crawling around distributing ammunition. We put out a lot of rounds.
How many days were you out on this FULAC mission?
4 missions, 4 days.
4 days. Did you get a resupply?
Second day we got resupplied. And this is the 4th day, and we're fighting for our lives. I had killed as many as I could, but I lost a lot of blood. And my corpsman, another brave thing, Billy Ray Smith, he crawled over and gave me a shot of morphine. Billy Ray's gone now.
You were injured in the Claymore blast?
Yeah.
How many different wounds did you have?
26. I'm sorry. 19. Both my legs were broken. And but Billy Ray gave me a shot of morphine. And he said, "I'll be back, Lieutenant." And he crawled away to give morphine. Nicolau lost a leg. His right leg was blown off, is amputated. And I heard him saying, "You son of a bitches." And he had the M60. Nick was a big man. He had 19-inch arms, 50-inch chest. He had a chest just like him over there, 50 inches.
And he could carry the M60 no problem?
He carried the M60 and he was firing. He was cursing, but he was firing. And of course he'd lost his leg and everybody was bleeding, and the corpsman, Billy Ray Smith, gave him a shot. He went up and down this line, defensive line, and Billy Ray was giving everybody morphine.
This is your Navy corpsman.
Yeah, my Navy corpsman, Billy Ray Smith.
You're in the middle of a firefight.
Yeah, he's crawling. He got hit. And a kid named Miller, he's gone. He was shot all to hell. And he was holding them back. Miller, brave man. They were all brave. All brave. I couldn't believe it. And he was what we call tail end Charlie. And he was firing. And I went to visit him before he died.
So he made it out.
He made it out.
Was this mission to observe the NVA or harass and engage? What was the goal?
To fight and kill as many as you could. And we did. I forget how many we killed, but it was a lot of them. They came, and we called in artillery. I don't know if the airstrikes got in at that time, but we had to get out of there because everybody was wounded now, and I'm dying from loss of blood. So I got my guys, a couple of guys who could walk, picked up King.
King was your war dog?
Yeah, he was dead. He was lying over here with his tongue hanging out. We weren't going to leave him. We were going to take him with us. And we took him with us to the landing zone. We had to kind of fight our way to the helicopter. It landed, and we had to get to the helicopter.
How were you able to walk?
Good question. Because a lot of that, if you're a religious person, I think God had a lot to do with it. That helicopter shouldn't have flown, had no gas. Yeah. True story. They went and looked at it. They investigated that. They took us out of there. The co-pilot was shot. And we got to it somehow. We got there, and I got all my troops wounded on the chopper and the dog's body. And I heard all the commotion. So I got off the helicopter. This is where they say the Medal of Honor thing comes in, but I got off the helicopter and went to the fight. I still had some ammunition. And I kept them off us until we got everybody on the chopper. The crew chief was a white guy. He had hairy arms. And he grabbed me by my harness and jerked me on board. And I flail on board the chopper.
You were hanging out.
Yeah, I'm hanging on the chopper. And it went up about 6-7 feet and come down and crash. And I fell off. I don't know how I got on the second time, but I got on the chopper the second time. The crew chief is grabbing me. Here's this guy holding on to me.
And your guys are laying all over because everyone's wounded.
Yeah, everybody's wounded. Blood was all over the place. You see it coming out of the chopper. And I heard some of the guys crying, not crying, but they were moaning. And I got everybody on board. And Sergeant Yerman and I were in the doorway looking as the chopper went up. And I was thinking everybody was on board and the dog body was on board. And we're flying south now. And they flew us to the hospital. And while we landed, I could hear the thud, and I could see the blood rushing. Everybody was bleeding. We had bandages, but we ran out of bandages. And we landed, and some of the corpsmen stopped running out toward the helicopter, and they had stretchers there, and they started moving them inside the hospital. And I was the last man on the chopper. I wouldn't go until I make sure all my men are gone. They're taken care of and they're alive. And they took King's body. And when they grabbed me and they had King's body, the guy grabbed King by his collar. He had his thick collar. And he started dragging him. I said, hey, don't drag him. Pick him up and carry him. He said, what the hell? The dog is dead now. I got work to do. And I had my M16 holding it. I had about 3 rounds left. Started off with 400. I got 3 rounds left now. I had counted them. And I said, I point my rifle at him. I said, you either pick him up and carry him or I'll shoot you right here. I'll kill you right here.
Because that dog was a Marine.
Yeah, he was dragging him. No, not King. He had a dog tag. If you don't pick him up, I'll kill you right here. I had my hand on the trigger. That's where God steps in. I got work for you to do. And he picked him up and carried King. I could see his tongue hanging out. And then they carried me in. Yeah, they carried me in, and they took me into the operating room, and they cut off my clothes. They just cut off my clothes and everything. Blood was all over the place. So they cut everything off, and I'm lying there. And the doctor said, Lieutenant, you've been hit real bad. We're gonna take off both your legs. You lost a lot of blood. The worst thing I ever heard. Damn, take off my legs. God damn, doc. And he came back, said, if I can get you to a plane, get you to a hospital in the Philippines, we might be able to save one of them.
Was he worried about the damage or infection?
Both. And then he came back in. He was a young guy. And he looked like he had tears in his eyes. He said, I'm going to try to keep you. I'm trying to keep you alive. And he talked about my leg. He come back in and said, we're going to get you to Da Nang. And they did. They flew me to Da Nang and then to Japan. So we got to Japan, and we spent a couple of days in Japan. Then they flew us to Alaska.
And at each stop, were you getting treatment at hospitals?
Yeah. Yeah, they flew us to Da Nang, and they took me into there. Didn't look good for me because they didn't think I was going to make it. I lost so much blood. They said I had a heart attack. Or they said my heart wasn't working the way it should work.
Were your guys still back at that medical unit?
We all flew to Da Nang together.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when we went to Alaska, it was 10 degrees below zero. And they took us all off the aircraft in the snow to refuel the aircraft.
They had to get the patients off
Yeah,
for safety concerns?
I don't know. But they took us all off the aircraft and laid us out there in the snow. And then they came and took everybody and put them on back on the like a C-140 or something like that, big one.
One of the big ones, yeah.
And I was the last one to go on board. Wasn't going aboard until my men were aboard. And they come and got me. And I felt that snow in my face, you know. And they grabbed me and put me on the aircraft. And going home was an experience. I know it's kind of here and there, but you know, that ride home or to the next place, I think they flew us to, we were in Alaska, then they flew us to Virginia, and that's when
that guy came out of the dark and urinated on you.
You remember.
You had told me earlier.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it was probably Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah, Norfolk, Virginia.
And from there to Bethesda.
Right.
Well, I know you spent some time at Bethesda recovering.
Mm-hmm.
If it's okay, can we go back to before Fulot?
Okay.
You were in country, working out of Fubai. Did you replace the First Force Recon group?
We were an addition to them.
Okay. And you started doing missions out of there. And can you tell us about some of those missions that you did?
Yeah, we ran a total of 50 missions, all total. But when we got to Da Nang with 1st Recon Battalion, then we left and went to, was it Fubai? I went to a mission in Fubai.
Mm-hmm.
We ran the POW missions. They had discovered they had some POWs in a POW camp. And one of the Vietnamese soldiers was accused of being too friendly with the Americans. So they put him in the camp.
As a prisoner.
Right. He escaped. And we picked him up. His name was Lap. Picked him up and they brought Lap down to me. Lap was going to lead us to the POW camp.
So there were reports that the American POWs were in this camp?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them?
Yeah. Well, as far as I know, the ones that were there was, I think, 5 or 6. There weren't that many because they usually sent them to different camps. But what we knew is that there were 5 and it was supposed to be all colored. That could have been, Latinos or African Americans. That's what Lap told me.
Was this mission coordinated with the CIA?
Yeah.
How often had you worked with the CIA?
Well, they were all over Vietnam. They gave us a lot of information. They had the equipment in their headquarters. And they had some guys from World War II, that was good at that sort of thing, OSS, I guess. And they were CIA guys now, and they come in country. And some of them had been in the military and joined CIA. So they were able to use their military experience. And they helped us out a lot because they had a headquarters in Da Nang, I think. And they had the equipment. They picked up a Lap and they brought them to me.
And they also had intel.
Right.
Right.
Very good. They had good intel, and they told me that there were these, Lap said that these prisoners were in this camp, Americans were in this camp. And he said he knew where the camp was, and he would lead us to the camp. Now, they gave Lap to me to keep until we start the mission. So we had to train our guys before we went out because this was a tough mission, way beyond enemy lines. behind the enemy lines. So we're going to go out and hit this POW camp.
Did LAP provide you with a layout of the
Yeah.
camp so you're able to train with that in mind?
Right. He led us to the camp. But at first, I didn't trust him. And I told LAP, if you're lying, I'll cut your throat.
Well, he had been a deserter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he cooperated.
He cooperated. One night, after our sessions, I was tired. I was laying down, and I woke up, and LAP I kept with me. I kept him in with me, and he had a bed right next to mine. I woke up. LAP's gone. He's gone. Why no? Jesus Christ, LAP's gone. After all of this, the boy is gone. I jump up, grab my rifle, looked outside, and there he was, down the street, where the head was. I went and got him. I said, God damn, LAP. If the Centuries catch you, they're going to kill you. They think he's a Vietnamese. He was a Vietnamese. I got him, brought him back. And he said, you were tired. He had to learn to speak a few words of English. And I could speak a few words of Vietnamese. Because they trained us before we went over. And he said, you told me you were tired and I didn't want to wake you up. And I had to go take a piss. And I said, well, next time you have to go to the bathroom, you wake me up and I'll take you there. What if one of those guards we had what we call roving guards, and they rove through the area in case something like that happens. Mm-hmm. And if they'd have caught him, they'd have killed him. He was a Vietnamese.
North Vietnamese.
Yeah. But we got through that, and I was looking at one of my letters, and he was asking, what are you reading? And my wife had sent me a picture. I had a picture of my wife. And he looked at it and smiled. I said, don't you smile at my wife, you know. He was a kid.
Yeah.
Wasn't 20 years old. He was a kid. I got to like LAP. After I scared the hell out of him about killing him, but I liked him. We went into the POW camp.
If we could pause for just a second.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your dad and that guy in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Compassion, but strength.
Yeah. I like LAP. And I saved his ass. On the way out, we had a helicopter come in and pick us all up. So I got my first Purple Heart in that mission, and my first Bronze Star on that mission too. We didn't get the POWs, so now we're on the way out, and the helicopter come in and was hovering, and I had to get all of my men up on a hoist. You know, and
the chopper couldn't get to the landing zone?
No. We had to walk to where that chopper was. We got to the chopper, and we got the hoist was dropped down, and I got everybody in the hoist, and I sent them all up. And even LAP, I sent him up. I kind of liked LAP. Now I could have left him behind, but I didn't. And Sergeant Yerman and I was only two on the ground. And Sergeant Yerman came to me and he grabbed me by my horse. He said, I'm going up. I said, no, you can't. You go first. See, I told him he could go first. And he said, no, you go. And then we had a little argument about that. And I put him in a horse, so he went up.
Just getting into the hoist, is this like a two-person job?
Yeah.
You need assistance?
Right.
Okay, so you got Yerman in even though he wanted you to go first.
Right. He went up about 6 feet and he yelled back down, if you get hit, I'll come back and get you. And the chopper went up and I'm the last person on the ground. Everybody's gone. And I could hear the gunfire and all of that.
So there were North Vietnamese advancing on your position?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And we're trying to get the hell out of there. And there was smoke because some of the guys who were in the chopper was firing to cover me on the ground. They were firing at the enemy who was advancing. You know, I'm on the ground now, and I'm weaponized. I got my weapon, but I needed to store my weapon to get in the hoist, you know, to get out of there. And, you know,
you had to sling it, your rifle?
Then I got a hoist out, lap out. Then I fell. I must have hit a clump of dirt or something. I fell. And everybody in the helicopter told me later on that they thought I was shot.
They saw you go down?
Yeah, I went down there. And then they saw me rise. Capers is on the ground. And I'm in the hoist.
How did you get into the hoist by yourself?
Good question. God was there. That's what we concluded. Those of us who want to believe in God, I mean, I don't know. It's a two-man operation. I got in the hoist, and I went up about 7 or 8 feet, and I got hit. Bam! Blood was all over it. Hit my face. And blood.
You took a round to the face?
Yeah. And the big scar on my face there is gone now. But pretty much hit me in the face, and I was bleeding all over the place. And the horse said, "Stop." Just bam, stop. So I'm hanging there. I'm looking around, and I could see the smoke from rifle fire and all that. But the chopper is smoking, and it was oscillating, or whatever they call that word is going around. And it went up and kept going up. God was pulling this hoist up, taking me out of harm's way. And my corpsman, he was a SEAL, good man, still alive. He reached out and pulled me in and threw me on the deck of the chopper and jumped on me and started first aid.
Because you'd been hit.
Right. Hit in the face. And it, you know.
Yeah, head wounds bleed a lot.
Yeah, God, I mean, I was hurting. He gave me a shot of morphine and he said, "I got you, Lieutenant. I got you." Doc Burwell.
Burwell?
Doc Burwell, Navy corpsman. God, I love those guys, and had it not been for him, I might have bled to death. You know, I don't know about this head wound thing, but, you know, I got, let's see, Sergeant Yerman, when I was on the ground, the chopper had turned around to leave.
Because they thought you were down.
Yeah. And Yerman went to the pilot and told the pilot, "No, you're not going to leave," pointed his rifle at him. So we still got a man on the ground. You're not leaving. Oh, I would have died out there on that day. And the pilot turned the chopper around, and that's when they saved me.
Wow. So that whole mission was based on intel that there were POWs at that camp,
right. Mm-hmm.
But you found none?
No. Found a lot of enemy guards, which was a firefight. And we had to get from the POW camp to where the chopper could land. The chopper couldn't land in the jungles, so we had to find a little space, which was different from the POW camp. So we hit the POW camp, killed what we could, get out of there, and then we had to make it to the helicopter. And he landed and picked us up. Got them all out. I was the last man on the ground. And I was proud of that. I wasn't going to leave a man on the ground. I didn't leave Lap on the ground. You know, and everybody lived. That could have been a disaster for us as Americans. Because if any of them, we couldn't get them on the chopper, they would have been captured.
Oh, if there had been POWs, absolutely. Yeah. That is an amazing tale. You had shown Lap your letter and your photo of your family.
And he fell in love with my wife.
How often did you write letters back and forth?
I wrote over 121 letters. I still have them.
You still have them?
Because my wife kept them. I got 121 letters, and I copied them there, and some of them in my book.
How much did you share in your letters home?
Well, obviously, I couldn't talk about killing people. I didn't. But some I could tell Dottie about because she wanted to hear about it. I guess some of the casualties I kept quiet because she had gotten to know some of the guys. And I lost a young man named Scanlon from Mass. And when we lost Scanlon, he was the first one we had killed. Young guy, flaming red hair, freckles.
From Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I wrote home about Scanlon. Matter of fact, I wrote to Scanlon's mother.
Because he was your guy.
Yeah. And I went to see his mother.
After the war?
Yeah. Well, the war was still going on. And when I got out of the hospital, they sent me to Europe. You know, and before I went to Europe, I stopped off there and told his mother what happened.
Was that important to you to seek out the families?
Yeah.
And communicate?
He never married. He fell in love with a girl in Okinawa. When we got to Okinawa, Scanlon fell in love with a pretty Okinawan girl. He was going to get married. I said, son, we're going into Vietnam, you know. You don't want your wife to be a widow. And I talked him out of it. But a lot of us who were going overseas, we didn't know if we were coming home or not. I had a wife and a son. I was coming home. But a lot of the guys got to places like we did when I was a youngster, got to France and smelled that French perfume and saw those pretty girls. Boy.
But you had a wife at home, and she was worried about you.
Yeah.
She had to be, because when you were at Fort Meade before you went to Vietnam, you were watching the news on TV.
Yeah.
Was she watching the news?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She knew where we were. You know, I think that she was proud of me and wanted me to do well. Now, the first time I got hit, I didn't tell her. I didn't write home.
You did not put that in the letter?
No, I did not do that.
You think she would have been too concerned?
Well, matter of fact, she got a letter from headquarters. One of those letters, today your son was wounded, and she got that letter. But the last time in Fulak, I didn't write a letter home. I wasn't in good shape anyway.
Well, right, you were being medevaced.
Yeah.
Right, but you didn't tell her
No.
that you were wounded.
No, but she said that she felt something to happen. And so these were the things that occurred to a family. And I think she told me that she had called her mother and told her mother something had happened. She felt it, and she was right. I had 19 holes I bled from. My legs were broken. I only weighed 120 pounds.
You had lost weight?
Yeah, I lost weight.
Oh, so if you don't mind me asking, what did you weigh before you went to
I
Vietnam?
weighed about 165, and I came home with about 122.
165 fighting strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you lost all that weight during all of your missions.
Yeah. We ate one meal a day. We were Marine commandos in the jungle. They dropped us in for 5 days, and we fought the enemy for 5 days, try to hold them back or kill or capture them.
So
Ate one meal a day.
Just help us understand, Major. Most of the Army and Marine Corps movements against the enemy were kind of this front versus that front.
Yeah.
You were infiltrating behind enemy lines, right? That's the nature of the force recon mission there?
We captured as many as we could, get information. I didn't like the way they treated us, the enemy soldiers, treated the Americans. But one day I was up in a place, I'm not sure the name of the base. We come out of a mission somewhere. I was with First Force, and this Marine was beating this Vietnamese, he was an older guy, and he was bleeding, and I said, Marine, he's a prisoner, I gotta get this information. I said, you gonna kill him? And he said, make no difference if he dies. And I said, no. All my guys, Team Broad-Minded, had lined up behind me now. We came in to get supplies, and he's killing this guy. And he was on the ground, he was crying, and an older guy, and I walked up to him and I said, no, don't hit him. And he said, what if I do kill him? What do you got to do with it? So I'll tell you what, you don't know me and I don't know you. But if you raise that rifle, my men will shoot you down. All my men had lined up behind me.
They fanned out behind you?
And I heard the safeties go off their rifles. And I'm thinking that, oh man, they're going to kill this guy. If he'd have raised his rifle toward me, he'd have been a dead man. They'd have got him.
This is just the way your team felt about you, and you protected each other.
Leadership.
Yeah.
The old man died, and I felt like, I could have saved him if I had to move quicker. I don't know what happened to the sergeant who, I never saw him again either.
You were telling us, Major, about your missions. You would be dropped in, so rappelling out of an a helo?
Yeah.
Or any parachute jumps?
No.
Okay.
We had one schedule.
Yeah.
But we felt like we could just land the helicopter.
Okay. And you were carrying everything you needed, and there's no resupply, and you're completely on your own.
We had something called a rucksack.
Yeah.
And we carried ammunition, and we had one meal we ate a day.
Yeah. And how hot was it?
100 degrees in some places. On the ground there, in the jungle, it's about 100 degrees.
And humid?
Yeah, and we took all of our food with us. One meal a day, had the cans of sea rations, and we had those little lighters. You could light those things and they would heat up the cans.
But you couldn't leave anything behind. You had to pack all the trash out too.
We carried everything out. We left nothing behind. These were scouts. When we went to the bathroom, we didn't leave nothing behind.
And how would you, before you were on foot, you're moving through the jungle, going over mountains.
Yeah.
How would you, what was the formation like?
Well, I had two point men, we call them point men, scouts, and they could find trails if any enemy soldiers had been this way, or animal trails, if it was like coming back from a mission and they ran into this tiger. And it was kind of scary because I didn't see all of the tiger, but they stopped the patrol, and I saw Galski with his rifle pointed at something.
Galski was your point man at that time?
Yeah.
And you had no idea?
I had no idea but I expected it was a tiger.
How did he tell the group to stop?
Well, we had we had sign language. Stop, and whatever. I don't remember them all now. But yeah, I told him to stop, or he told me to stop, because he saw something. I thought I saw his tail, but I'm not sure. But then he moved us forward, and we went into a minefield. Yeah, that was going home after we dropped on this mountain, and the choppers couldn't come get us.
What was the mission?
The mission was to find a jet aircraft that crashed in the mountains. And we were told it may have a nuke on it. So we dropped us on this mountain. We rappelled down the mountain to the helicopter. No, it wasn't a helicopter. It was a B-57.
Okay.
Yeah, B-57.
That may have had a nuclear device on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you rappelled down, you dropped in,
Right.
rappelled down a mountain.
Yeah.
Did you find the remains?
Yeah. It was there, but it was burned up. It caught fire, but there was no nuke on it. I mean, I'd been to the nuclear biological chemical warfare school, and I would have known. And once we complete the mission, they were supposed to pick us up.
This is well behind enemy lines, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Way behind enemy lines, and they told us that they couldn't come out because of the weather.
Yeah, flight conditions have to be almost perfect
Right.
for them to come in, right?
And then they'd have to get at least 1,200 feet or something like that. And so they said I was on my own, and until they could get somebody out to pick us up. So I got my guys together. Another one of the bravest things I think I saw, I had them all together. Didn't have my dog. Had them all together, and I told them, here's the situation. Here we are. We did what we were supposed to do. We found the aircraft, and they were supposed to pick us up, but they can't because of weather conditions and nothing's flying. So we can stay here and wait until they bring something in. In that case, they're going to find us. We're going to have to fight until somebody come and get us, or we can walk home. And I looked at each man. It was Dorosky and Scanlon. Scanlon was killed later on. I talked to Dorosky last week. And I looked at my point men. I said, okay, point men, take us home. And everybody looked at me, and they were tired, And we decided that we're not going to stay here and fight for 2 or 3 days without much ammunition.
Where was the closest base you could get to?
It was a base. It was, what was it called? I'm trying to think what they called it. They had some troops there. And they had some Vietnamese, South Vietnamese there.
Oh, the Arvan?
Right, yeah. Good. Arvan. Hadn't heard that word in a long time. We can get there. They can pick us up. And we had enough life in our batteries that we could keep contact with our home base until we decided to shut the radios down to save our batteries. And now we're humping. And we had a young man.
You were on the side of a mountain.
Yeah, and we went down, and then we had to swim the rivers. And one man, he's gone now. Damn, it seems like they're all gone. He stopped. And he said, I can't do this anymore. And he stopped. And I went back, and I grabbed him, and I picked him up, and I shoved him ahead of me. He said, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore, I said, yeah, you're going. You're not gonna stay here. You're going with me. And I grabbed him by his harness, and I was pulling him up the hill, and he fell down. And I grabbed him, I picked him up again, and I shoved him. And he said, all right, I'll walk. And he started walking again.
Y'all were at the limit of physical endurance.
Yeah, 5 days, no food, no water. 5 days, enemy territory.
Had you seen any patrols?
Yeah, we heard them walking by. We would go get hide. We could melt into the jungle, you know. And we got out. We got to the top of that mountain, which I don't remember his name now. And I took him with us. I didn't leave anybody behind. No, not going to do that. He got wounded shortly after that at Quezon.
Okay. You said there was a minefield coming back from that mission.
Yeah, good. We coming out of the jungle. I got all my men with me now. And we start following the stars there until we got to the river. This is before the minefield. We got to the river. We had some stuff from the aircraft and our equipment, but now we have to get across the river with the information. I sent Dorosky across. Dorosky swam across, and nothing happened. You can see some snakes, you know, in the water. And I was watching Dorosky with my M16 in case anything come out of the water. And he swam across, had his equipment, and he got on the other side. And now Scanlon was with him. And Scanlon went down and got stuck in the mud in the river there. And Dorosky went down, and Scanlon grabbed onto his legs and pulled him up. They were like Mutt and Jeff. Scanlon was small, and Ski was 6 feet something. And Scanlon grabbed onto his legs, and when he came up, I could hear him breathe.
You thought you'd lost him.
Yeah, I thought he was gone. And now I had to get the rest of my men across on all the equipment. So we started swimming across. I was the last man to go across because I wanted to make sure that everybody was okay. In case something grabbed them. We had a lot of crocodiles. Didn't have any alligators, there were crocodiles over there. And I was looking for something to eat. But we got across. No snakes, no crocodiles. We got out of the river, which was kind of large, it was wide.
Yeah.
You know, and we had trouble getting across because we were tired, no food, no fresh water. Dorosky goes out, and Dorosky stopped the patrol. And he saw these prongs where mines were. He stopped us. I said, oh, shit. And I told him, go ahead. We couldn't go back.
Why couldn't you go back?
Couldn't cross that that river. I know they were tracking us. Yeah. And we went through the first mine. Then Dorosky stopped us again. Looked back at me. I'm watching him, eye-to-eye contact. And I had to make decisions. When it's a situation like we were in constantly, you have to make those decisions. I'm not going to stay here and die in a prison camp. We kept walking until Dorosky stopped the patrol again. It's the third time. And I told him to keep going.
Were you just like walking in each other's footprints?
Yeah, that's good. We walked each other's footprints. We saw those little 3 prongs, which were, showed there was a mine there. There was no signs that I could read. So we're going anyway. And all of a sudden, we saw them to the west. They opened fire, about 40 of them.
North Vietnamese?
North Vietnamese.
On your trail?
Yeah. So now, we have to fight now. We're tired, but we got ammunition because we hadn't been in a firefight. So now we open up. We swept the area. Damn, they were good. Damn, They were good. And they were yelling and screaming, "Come get us, MFs." And we're out of the river. We're out of the minefields. And they told us there was a South Vietnamese fort. And I figured if I can get to that, we'll get picked up. But they open up on us. So now we're mad. We face down a Bengal tiger, the river, the minefields. You picked the wrong group, the wrong day. You don't want to mess with Team Broad-Minded. Well, we kept it down, and all of a sudden somebody saw a truck, and the truck was standing still. And we're tired now, 5 days. So we finally saw these guys waving. And it was the drivers of a 6x.
Yeah.
And we barely made it to the 6x, and they was sent from the 3rd Recon Battalion to pick us up. They had been tracking us, but I had no radio communication. It was 5 days from the time they picked us up to the time I saw that truck. So now we get aboard the truck. I got all my men aboard the truck. They're tired. And I didn't get on the truck. I don't know. Somehow I thought that it was my duty to make sure my kids got out of it. If you leave me behind, that's okay.
Did you feel like your team was family?
Yeah, they were my sons. They were my sons. Now, you see, during that time, I went from sergeant to staff sergeant to 2nd lieutenant, and I was a commanding officer at Quezon. So they watched me. I gave orders. I wouldn't eat until they ate. Feed my troops. One day, one of my troops came to me, and he was supposed to go on patrol, and his jacket was raggedy. And he said, "I went to supply to get another jacket, sir. They didn't give me one." I took off my jacket. It was in the street, and it was raining. And he took off his jacket, and I put my jacket on him. "I'll feed you first. I'll give you my ammunition. You live before me." And he took the jacket. He was walking down the street with my jacket on, with my name on it. I'd never been to officer's training. Never spent the day in what they call OCS, or the basic school for the Marines. It was something I felt. And I lost some good men. I have to admit that I lost some good men. And right now, from those days, there's 2 still left alive. Henry Stanton and Walt Dorosky. And I love them all.
Just like you getting every single one of them on the helicopter before you're taking care of them now, and you'll be the last one probably.
I was the last man on all the missions. The last one on Fulak, and the crew chief pulled me on the first time, and couldn't make it. No, but he got me on the second time, and it went up and it crashed. And he held me by my harness.
Yeah.
And we all got out of there. I looked down, the chopper was flying away.
Like a miracle.
Yeah.
When you told us about finding that python in Panama, you said he was Gomer number 1.
That was number 1, yeah.
Where'd you find number 2?
Quezon in Vietnam. We'd gone on this mission on the border, the Laotian border. Mm-hmm. And we were coming back, and we hadn't killed anybody. I had no casualties, and we're coming back. And my point man stopped the patrol. I figured, oh shit. We were close to the base, And the base was caisson up on top of a mountain.
You going uphill?
Yeah. And we saw this big ass snake. And I looked at him and I figured, what the hell? We didn't have no casualties. Let's take him back. So they jumped on him, jumped on his head. They put a poncho over his head. Then a couple of them jumped on the length of him, and he was struggling. And they picked him up, and they put him in a poncho. Or he was part of a poncho already. And they wrapped him up, and we put him in you have the sticks in the poncho, and we put him in the sticks in the poncho. Right, yeah. I forget what they call those things now. They use them a lot in Africa. And we brought the snake back to the river. It was a large river on the base of the base there. And there was a lot of rocks in the river there, and we were tired. Oh, hell. So I figured that if we take the snake back to the base, that would be an amusement. But then how are we going to get this snake across the river? So we decided, no, I can't. I decided that I can't do that. So I let the snake out of the poncho, let him on the side of the river. Then we swam across, climbed up the mountain, and we got back. So, but we had radioed in and told everybody that we got this big snake. So we get back and everybody's asking, well, where's your snake? I said, well, we left him on the other side of the river because we didn't want to have him, well, he wasn't drowned, but we couldn't take him back. And they said, yeah, this snake, yeah, capers in this snake. So I got with a couple of the guys and I said, I wonder if the snake is still there. So we'd gotten pretty good friends with the helicopter pilots. So I went to one of the helicopter pilots and I said, hey, we had this snake down there. He said, yeah, we heard about this snake. I said, if you could fly down there and land on some of the rocks, my swimmers will go and get him. He's probably still there. He said, you want me to risk this $1 million helicopter, go down and get the snake that you said is there? I said, come on now, you fly me on other kind of missions. Okay, so I got 3 of my divers, and the chopper flew down and landed on this big rock, and they jumped out and went and got the snake.
It was still there?
Yeah, the snake was still there. Still there. They went and got the snake, wrapped him up, and brought him back, put him on the chopper, and brought him back to Caisson. So now the mystery begins. What are you going to feed this 18-foot snake? Well, I don't know. So Yerman said he won't eat anything but live food. So he said, I'll go down to the village and I'll get some food for him.
There's photos of you with the snake.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I just can't believe this is amazing.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We brought the snake back and we dug a big hole and put the snake in there. He's a long snake, big head. So Yerman says, we got to get him some live food. So he took the Jeep and went out down in town, a little Vietnamese town. And he come back with a duck. And he brought this duck back. And it's kind of funny, I know. Brought this duck back. And he tied the duck's leg, put a little string around his leg, and put him in the hole with the snake.
Otherwise, the duck could get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got him wrapped up there. And so the duck is quacking around, and the snake is laying there. We're just waiting for the snake to eat this duck, because you got to have live food. So we got this duck in there. We're just waiting that he's going to eat this duck in a minute. So all of the guys from the helicopter squadron, they all come over, and all of the folks come over.
It's got to be the most exciting thing happening in Caisson right now.
It was so funny. And
were they making bets? Were they placing bets?
They were making bets.
Snake, duck?
They were making bets on Gomer the snake against this damn duck. And the duck was quacking around. The snake was lying there. And I said, well, we'll wait it out because any day now, this is going to happen. So we all waiting for this spectacle. And nothing happened. The night went by. The next day, the duck is still there in the the snake is there, still quiet, and we figured something's going wrong here. And then we looked up, looked in the hole, and the snake was dead as a doornail. He was dead. So we couldn't resist saying that the snake had killed the duck had killed the snake.
Was your money on the duck or the snake?
On the duck, really. We had fun with it, and the duck pecked him, and then all kind of lies we told. And then we took the snake out and cut him up. It was good meat, and we took the skin and gave him to a group of villagers called the Montagnards. They lived in the mountains.
The French Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they gave them the skin. No, we kept the skin. We gave them some of the meat.
Okay.
Yeah. It was exciting. We learned something. And we never told that story right until I think I was in a hospital. He was a Vietnamese. He was in the hospital. He was Chinese. In the hospital at Bethesda. His name was Mr. O'Shearer. He was a lieutenant in the Naval Academy, and he got sick. Something happened to him. They brought him to my room. I'm there, and I'm lying in the bed, and I wake up, and I see this Vietnamese. Look Vietnamese, Chinese. I hate to be racial, but he looked to me like a Vietnamese, which close to me, I'm going to kill you. And
you're in the hospital.
I'm in the hospital at Bethesda. I'm recuperating, and I see this kid there. I go for him. So, hate to say it, but I'll go and kill him. He got to the bathroom and locked the door, and one of the corpsmen came in and told me he was an American. And I felt bad. They opened the door, and he came out. He was still scared. And I sat him down, and I told him how sorry I was. I said, Mr. O'Shearer, I'm so sorry, but last year or so, it's not fair to you because you're an American citizen, and I took it the wrong way. He said, oh, that's okay.
How long did you stay in Bethesda Naval Hospital?
A year.
1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Recovering from all those multiple wounds. Mm-hmm. And this was a result of the mission at Fulak,
mm-hmm.
the Claymore explosion.
And then again, I was just tired, overworked. I went from sergeant to staff sergeant to second lieutenant. I weighed 122 pounds when I come home.
How did your family find out that you had been wounded?
Not sure. I think I wrote a letter to Dottie from Japan and told her I was coming home. I had already told her I was coming home, but I told her I was okay.
Well, that mission was probably near the end of your year in country, right?
Yeah.
So you were scheduled to return home.
Right.
On 2 feet.
Didn't make it. Came home. And she came to my room and brought my son. Well, before she got to my room, my son had his hand on, he couldn't see, but he had his hand on the walls. Mm-hmm. And he come up the hallway, and we don't know how he knew which room I was in. He come into my room, and he got on my bed. This is my child, and says, hey, Dad. He's on my bed. Dottie's running down the hall trying to catch him. She didn't know where I was, and he should have known where I was, but he came
found
in
you.
that room.
In all those hospital rooms on that ward, he walked into yours.
That room. Sure did. And that story was told for so many years. How did Gary Capers find his dad? And I held him for the first time. Through all of the training, through all of the combat, and all of the time I was there in the hospital, from Japan to Alaska and all of that. Dottie come in chasing him, and I was in love all over again. At first I was a little, I don't know, because I thought that we wrote letters. When I get home, we're going to go party. We're going to do this, do that. And I come home a cripple.
You were pretty beat up.
Yeah.
Were you worried how she was going to accept you?
Yeah, that was my problem. Because I wrote her these letters that we're going to go dancing. And I spent all this time in a wheelchair. They gave me crutches. And the first time I took the crutches and I threw them across the room. That's not me. I couldn't walk. But all these things I went through, and they declared me insane. Declared me insane. I saw Dottie, and we were good to see each other. But when I was in a room, it wasn't a knock on the door. But one of my troops walked in.
One of your guys?
Yeah. Said, "Hey, Lieutenant, how the hell are you?" I said, "Oh, man, come in." And then about a minute after he came in, I'm looking at him. Another guy walked in. Said, "Hey, Lieutenant, how the hell are you?" And they walked in. There were 7 Marines, and I knew. 7 of them. They were dead, but they're in my room. I'm talking to them. We're laughing, having a good time. You know? And let's see, all of a sudden there was the first one who came in, he said, "Lieutenant, I got to go now." I said, "Where you going?" He said, "I got to go now." And the other one said, "I got to go." And before I knew it, all 7 of them had walked out the room. I said, "I'll go with you." They said, "No, you can't go." These was words I'm hearing. And then my nurse who was sitting at the desk, come to the room. I said, "Nurse, you see these? All my buddies?" She said, "Lieutenant, what buddies?" I said, "My buddies were here talking to me and tell them I'll see them. Tell me I'll see them." And she said, "Lieutenant, I've been sitting here for an hour. Nobody's come in your room. Nobody's come in your room. You here by yourself." I said, No, they were here. I saw them. I talked to them. And then they sent me to see the psychiatrist. I spent a couple of days with a psychiatrist, and they declared my ass insane.
Really, you were just trying to process everything you had been through, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know you had surgeries, multiple surgeries, and physical therapy for a year, but military health wasn't really set up for mental health.
No.
And treating that portion of what was broken.
Exactly.
So how did you work your way through all those visions and images?
There were more images that I could tell you about now. In the time and space. But if you look at my career, from young Jim Capers to the guy that I held my hand over his mouth and I cut his throat. And blood gushed out from his veins. And I hit him here and I ripped him down. I cut his groin. You know?
Yeah. Because you had to.
Yeah. Yeah, I killed him with my knife. Yeah, you know. And for years, there was so much blood that came out of his throat.
You can still see that.
I feel it.
Yeah.
When I come home from Vietnam, I still had blood on my hands. I couldn't spare any water. And I'd get up at night and I'd wash my hands. You know, I felt it. I could see it. It was his blood.
That's a lot to carry.
And then we had this Marine killed on this amphibious mission. He was in an Amtrak, and a mine went off, and he fell out in the sand, and he rolled over on his back. It hit him in his back, and I ran out to him. He turned over on his back, and I turned him over to see what's going on. His back was nothing but flesh. And I reached to try to stop the bleeding, and I got my hand inside his back, and I could feel the flesh, you know? And I called for the corpsman, and the corpsman come running over, and 3 of my guys come running over, and they jumped on me. Say, Lieutenant, you okay? The blood wasn't mine, it was his. And the corpsman came over and did a good job. He saved him. And then he lived. They took him out to the ship. But that evening, somebody gave me a can of sea rations, and it didn't have a spoon. And I ate this. I was hungry. I hadn't eaten in a while. I was pulling the food out of my can, and I was eating the sea rations, and I saw pieces of flesh on my fingernail. But we saved that Marine.
Yeah.
So all I want to do is save that Marine.
And it is a lot to process you're working on physical recovery, and you're still having mental issues.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure being back with family was good.
Yeah.
And did you, when you got out of Bethesda, did you get, shore duty?
Yeah. They sent me to Bethesda. I was in Bethesda. They sent me to Fort Meade, Maryland.
Oh, back to Fort Meade.
Yeah.
Back to the Marine barracks.
And there was an Army base there.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to Fort Meade, and I went back to the drill team as an officer. I left as an NCO. I come back as an officer, highly decorated. I didn't have the Medal of Honor at that time, but I had the Purple Hearts and the Bronze Stars and the other stuff they give you.
Now, I know you were a recruiting poster Marine.
Mm-hmm.
Featured in an ad campaign. Was that when you were stationed the second time at Fort Meade?
Mm-hmm.
And you were commissioned, first lieutenant now.
Yeah. And they took me to the Army golf course, and they had the J. Walter Thompson company from New York. They came in and spent 3 days marching around, and they took 600 pictures, and I think they had put out 4 or 5 in those posters, Asker Marines and different things that was popular back in those days. And
you're the Marine officer,
right?
And you dress blues at the center of that formation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was there, and the picture has me in front of the group, and one of the Marines who were behind me, I admired him so much because my legs I had cast on my legs early on, so I was still having trouble stabilizing. And he was behind me, holding me up. You don't see his hand, but he's holding me up.
So you looked good, but you needed support.
Right.
Yeah.
And he says, I got you, Lieutenant. And before I went to the golf course, I had to get the officer uniform. I'd never had an officer uniform. So my wife and I went to Quantico.
And that's it's a typical step. You commission, you go through officer candidate school, you go to the uniform shop, you get everything you need. You were commissioned in the field.
Yeah. I left all my stuff in Vietnam. So now I had to go to Quantico. It cost a lot of money. My pay, I was making $160 a month. Wow.
It's pretty good back then.
Yeah. She took me to the uniform shop. Dottie drove me down there. I couldn't drive. And went there and they told me, I'm sorry, Lieutenant. We can't give you a uniform. You don't look like a Marine.
So what did they mean when they said that?
I was skin and bones. I weighed 120 pounds. They turned me away. They turned Jim Capers away, the guy that's getting the Medal of Honor now. They sent me home. We got back in the car and we were driving home. Dottie said, we'll come back. That was Dottie Capers. Says, we'll come back. And damn it, we did come back.
So
she drove me back.
She helped you get back to health and
back
fighting
home
weight?
And she fattened me up. And before I knew it, I think I was at 150 pounds, something like that. But exercise. I got back into karate again, savate, aikido, judo. I'm getting to be Jim Capers again. And at one point, I was called one of the 5 most dangerous men in America. That was in some magazine years ago. But I was getting back. But we went back to Quantico. I got that uniform.
So you got the uniform, did the photo shoot.
Yeah.
Now you're on a recruiting poster out at every recruiting station in America.
Yeah. Yeah, we did that. But she was such a big part of my life. I loved her so much. One day at Bethesda, she took me from my room and she helped me walk to the parking lot. Yeah, in the parking lot. And she stood there and she took out her purse and drawed a piece of chalk on the ground and said, you stand here. I said, okay, sweetheart. And she walked out 10 feet. She said, you know, you can walk. All you have to do is just walk to me. I'll be here for you. And I crossed the white chalk on the ground and I fell. I said, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I can't make it. My legs, they're on fire. I can't make it. She said, yes, you can. You can make it. You can get up now. You can walk to me. And I got up and I made it, I think, 2 steps. You know, it was killing me. I had metal in my thighs. I didn't know about it until recent, in the bone in my thighs. And I started to walk. And she put out her arms and said, come on, sweetheart, you can walk to me. I'm going to be here for you. We're going to walk together. And I made it a few more steps. And I said, she's going to come get me. She won't let me fall again. She will come get me. And she stood there. And she looked at me and said, sweetheart, we're going to walk together for the rest of our lives. Just like when we married, when we were youngsters. We're going to grow old together. Just walk a few more steps. And I took off and I walked and I got to her and I figured she was going to run out and grab me. Dottie stood there, you know, and I fell into her arms. She said, welcome home, sweetheart. We stayed married for 50 years. Loss of our child, the loss of parents, the bloody wars, the folks who said I didn't do enough for the Medal of Honor. You know, well, maybe I didn't do enough. But my team says I did. Did the best I could for them. I fought with them. I give them my water. I give them my food if they needed it.
Service before self. Yeah. Well, that is powerful. And I know You went on, did a tour in Hawaii.
Yeah.
You'd already told us about your tour on the Wasp. Did you finish out your career? Because your Major James Capers retired.
Yeah.
Did you finish out your career back at a Force Recon
I
group?
did. I retired as the commanding officer of 2nd Force Recon Company. And
Here in Lejeune?
Camp Lejeune. That day, Dottie was with me on the parade field. And we marched out, and the general was there. I think the admiral might have been there. Come to see the old warrior, and they gave my wife an award, presented that to her, and I stood there. And they gave me a couple medals. I forget which ones they were now, but I'm leaving active duty. And then they let me march to the side. I could hear the drums and the bugles playing. The band was there. The band was there to see the major step down. And I could hear it, but after a while, I could hear them drifting off in the distance. They were going home. And I could still hear them, the cadence. And the general had left, the admiral had left, and all my friends had come to see the warrior retire. Dottie was looking at me. She said, "Sweetheart, I'm not going to draw a line in the sand this time, but I think it's time for us to go home now."
So it was hard for you
Yeah.
to leave the Marine Corps.
Yeah. That's all I'd done from the time I was a teenager.
And you'd been so successful.
Yeah.
You were good at it.
I had gray hair now. And Dottie's saying, "Let's go home, sweetheart." I said, "Well, wait a few more minutes, and maybe somebody might want to come out and say goodbye to us." And I waited, and she said, "Let's walk back to where the shade is." It was a hot June day, and we walked together arm in arm. And then the guys who had brought the drinks and the stuff, they said, "Senate, you think it's okay for us to take this away now?" I said, "Now, wait a minute. Maybe some more coming." And Dottie looked at me and she said, "Sweetheart, it's over now. It's over. Let's go home now." And I looked around. They were all gone. The memories, the troops, the tours, the blood, the pain. And Dottie's walking with me to our car. And she said, "I'll drive. We'll go pick up Gary now." I was sad. That was all I knew. The time they brought me to Paris Island and around the world, and now Jim Capers, the elite warrior, could swim for miles. And we went home, and I took my uniform off and never put it back on. It's in my closet now.
Wow.
And Dottie Capers, which is what the story is about. I loved her the first time I saw her. And when she closed her eyes at the hospital and she squeezed my hand, she said, I'll see you soon." One night I was here. One of my friends come to see me. We were sitting in the den, and a bird flew in here. The door was open, bird flew in here, and flew, and it lighted over at that window right there. This is a bird. And flew around the room. My friend and I are watching this bird, and I think one of my doctors was here. And then we went up to the living room, and the bird had lighted again on the door out there. And we opened the door, and the bird landed in the screen door. And it flew around the house, the kitchen. This is after Dottie's gone now. And my friends left. They saw the bird. And I said, okay, it's time for you to go to bed. They put me to bed. The next morning, I woke up and the bird was in the kitchen, at the window in the kitchen. And I opened the door, and the bird flew out to Dottie's flower garden and landed. She never finished it. And then I realized that, I'll see her again, but maybe she is telling me that she's okay. She doesn't have cancer. She's with God. She's with Gary. She's okay. The bird tells me that I can move on with my life now. I believe that. I believe Dottie Capers came back and told me it's okay. They're okay.
Yes. Well, Major, is there anything about your life, your career, that we haven't asked about today that you'd like to tell us?
You did a good job. I think you got it all. Pretty much,
I do have a question.
Yeah.
What type of good trouble did you get into after the Marine Corps, and were there any pythons?
No pythons. Good for that. Yeah, I ran into a lot of pythons and snakes. Well, after we retired, we built this house from the ground up.
This was 1978?
Yeah.
Okay.
Built the house. Gary's in school, workshop, and Dottie's out in the backyard, and we built a fish pond, and she's out there planting something in the fish pond. And I was in the bedroom, and she came in and said, "Sweetheart, I've been bit by a snake. A snake bit her." And I didn't know if the snake was poisonous or not. So I grabbed her and I did first aid, of course, and I could see the punctures on her finger. Put her in the car and drove 90 miles an hour to the hospital down the road down there. And I took her to the desk, and I told her that my wife been bit by a snake. She said, "Well, take a seat and I'll get the..." No, I'm not taking a seat. I want to see the doctor now. So the doctor came out and he looked at it. It's swelling up, it's swollen, but it wasn't poisonous. Dottie Capers had not cried. I'm holding on to her like we've done for so many days. Her finger swole up. And the doctor gave us some medicine and we came home. I have seen snake bites before in Southeast Asia. A lot of them, as a matter of fact. One of my guys, Miller, got bit. But at any rate, got his finger. We bandaged up everything. And that gave us, I don't know, we're in love all over again. We go to dinner, and I loved her so much. Said, "God, take me, but don't take my wife or my child." And I guess for a while I prayed for my son to live. And I prayed for my wife to live. But God has promised me that I'll see him again. And now this country wants to give me their highest award, a farmer's son who picked cotton, cropped tobacco, and sat in the back of the bus. I wasn't good enough to sit in the front of the bus. I didn't get the commissions early on. I got it after I shed blood for this country. But it's the greatest country in the world. I've been to most of the countries. I found nothing better. Nothing better than this flag. I've carried the flag at Fort Meade with the Drum and Bugle Corps. When I was in Quezon, I had a flag with me, that a little small American flag I carried in my jacket pocket. And through all of the battles there, I got another Purple Heart at Quezon, and they decided to pull us out now. We had 3 months of hard fighting in the mountains. And we're pulling out now. We're going to Fulak, I think, to get ready to go home. Our tour's almost over. So we're on the top of this mountain, and the North Vietnamese was on the top of their mountains on the north. So now the C-130, which is the big airlift, had landed to take out 3rd Force Recon Company. We'd done well, and the propellers were so giant. The wind was blowing, and it blew my flag out, and it was flying toward the edge of this mountain, this great mountain that we had our base on. And I can't lose this flag now.
You carried it with you on every mission.
With me. And all of a sudden the flag is flying away because of the wind from the propellers. So I go after this flag, and Sergeant Yerman says, "Come on, Lieutenant, we need to go now. Pilot's ready to go." I said, "Let me get my flag." And I run for the flag, and the propellers were so strong, the flag flew over the mountain, and it dropped down. And I said, I can get it. It's on the ledge down. I can get it. And Sergeant Yerman, he's gone now, bless his heart. He said, "Lieutenant, let's go now. Let's go. Leave it there." He said, "I'll get you another flag." I draped that flag on his body at Arlington National Cemetery, another flag. My long friend who told me at Quezon, "We got to get out." I could hear the explosions all around. He said, "We got to get out of here." They're walking the rounds. They were walking them to where we were.
Right, getting each round closer to the target.
Yep, good. And he said, "Can you move?" I said, "No, I can't move, Sarge." He said, "They're coming in." And I said, "Get out of here. Get to the bunker." And he walked away for a moment, and he come back, and he sat down where you are. He sat down, he took my hand. And he said to me, "You've been the best friend I've ever had. If I've got to die," the light had gone out, it was dark in there. He said, "If I've got to die, let me die with the only friend I ever had." And we sat there together in the dark. And across the street there, 2 of the buildings got blown up. And while we were there, one night, the 324th B Division attacked our base. They were coming. I could hear the bugles playing. They used to blow those bugles. They come in and attack. They usually about 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm watching, and I saw this Marine over there, and I said, "Marine, come over here." He said, "Yes, sir." And he came over, I was lieutenant at that time. I said, stay with me because they're coming. And they came through the wire. We had guys there fighting them. And the Marine, they hadn't started fighting yet. The Marine stood with me. He said, Lieutenant, I'm a little tired now. Can I sit down for a minute? I said, yes, son, sit down. We got a few minutes. And he sat down right to my right leg, and he keeled over, dead. He had a hole in his chest. I didn't see. The boy died on his post. Mm-hmm. He never said, I'm hit. He just fell over. You know, that was bad for me. I'm angry now. But then they hit the lines, and my troops was on the line. I went up to the line, and they came through, and we had hand-to-hand combat. We're going to fight you. You're not going to take this base. I could hear a couple of my guys was saying, come on in. Come on in. We're not going anywhere. Come on in. A lot of wounded. I got the rest of the troops that weren't hit or wounded, or hit or dead. And we decided that they're not going to take this base. You're not going to take this base. We will fight you. Marines don't lose battles. We win battles. And the sun come up, and there were dead bodies all over the place. We'd killed all of them. Then it was time for us to go. And I lost the flag over the mountain. Sergeant Yerman was buried with that flag in Arlington National Cemetery. I took him there. I buried him.
Give him his final salute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a long, go ahead, son, there's long stuff there. You take me back to where the demons were.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to thank you for taking the time to take us through your life story today.
Only part of it, son. Only part of it. When the times after all of this or before this, I was still a Negro. Still a Negro. They finally changed that to being Black Americans. There were places I had to sit in the back of the bus. You know, but all that is gone now, and I hope that hearing this or seeing this will give encouragement to this nation. We can do better. We're the best nation in the history of this world. I believe in that flag. I supported that flag. I carried that flag. It flew out on my jacket in a mountain 12,000 miles away.
And you served for 22 years.
Yeah.
Well, sir, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
It's been an honor.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Now you got me crying all over the place.